All right, Florida State baseball wraps up their season with a loss to Tennessee, 7-2 in the national semifinals. Tennessee will go on to the finals where they'll play Texas A&M, who thankfully beat UF just hours after our season ended. We'll talk about Tennessee just a little bit and then just talk about this program going forward. The game was what it was. Tennessee did a really good job and is a really good team. It is number one and was number one for a lot of the year for a reason. They've certainly been playing very well. Their offense doesn't really skip a beat ever, and they capitalize on mistakes. I thought, you can question pitching, you can question decisions, you can question this guy, that guy. At the end of the day, you knew it was going to be tough going through the losers bracket. Things work out differently, and you win last Friday night. You probably find a way to get out of this thing by beating Tennessee one of two times, having to use Sechrist on, in their game three as opposed to against you. A little bit more taxed on their bullpen. Maybe you get that stellar performance from Army that you got against UNC. Maybe you get that for a few innings against Tennessee. And then, relief pitching was really good yesterday. I thought Joe Charles came in and was really, really good. I thought Oxford came in and was really – so you had that, right? And so it was going to be tough after Friday anyway. And so you battled, I thought that Florida State, man, they just looked off the entire game, and I don't know. I'm certainly not an expert. Those guys over at Sunday Golds do a much better job, and you should go listen to them and subscribe to them if you're not on Apple Podcasts or wherever. But Brett and Aria do a much better job of breaking this down. I haven't even listened to them just yet, but it's one of the few pods that I do listen to, and so I would certainly suggest you go check them out. But Florida State just looked off to me. In the top of the first inning, Tennessee scores 3 runs, and I don't think that Abraham was super sharp, but I do think he got a couple of ground balls that Link talks about having to make the spectacular play to win on this level. And honestly, I don't know. I feel like Cantu has to get that ball that's a grounder right by him into right field. If he does, he's certainly getting 1 out, maybe 2 at that point. Or even if he just stops it and doesn't get any outs. The very next play, a ball is hit to Cam Smith, and he kind of bobbles it, and there's another ground double, a ground into a double play that you don't capitalize on. But you really could have been out of that inning pretty quickly. Again, I thought Abraham wasn't sharp, but he got you the ground balls you needed. You just didn't capitalize. Cantu's play would have been pretty tough. I've seen people talk about if he would have come off the bag, maybe when the pitch was being thrown, which is when you should come off the bag if you're not getting picked off, then he probably would have been in position, could have made a 3-4-3 double play, shoulda, woulda, coulda, right? And so, but you give up the run on the failed pickoff move. If you get out of that first inning and you take 2 or 3 of their runs away, you're looking at a 4-2 ball game late, right? And then you talk about the base running errors. You had 9 and 1, and this happened back-to-back days. This happened on the North Carolina game as well. But you talk about the base running errors when you've got second and third with nobody out, and you're thinking, okay, here's Tibbs and Cam. We should be in pretty good shape. And Cam hits a chopper that West probably just hesitated too much on. Link talked about that too in his in-game interview. Looked like he hesitated a bit much and doesn't come home. That hurts you because you don't score the 1 run and you get the out, right? And so if you didn't have that, you'd be sitting first and third with nobody out. And then then when Tibbs grounds into the double play, you don't have any outs. You still score the 1 run. Or when Tibbs grounds into the double play, which was unconventional, right? They went to first, and then second next. If Cam just gets caught in a rundown, or if Williams hustles home, you score the second run there. And so you look at, you take their 3 runs away in the first that you just gave them, and you give yourself those 2 run-ins off of base running errors, the final score is 4-4, right? Or it goes to extra innings at that point. Now, do you end up holding on? Do you end up winning the game? I don't know. But, man, just really the mistakes in the first inning defensively, and then the mistakes in the inning where Tibbs and Cam grounded out with 2 runners in scoring position, man, those 2 right there were enough. And then you add in the fact that Tennessee absolutely capitalized on everything. every single break that could go Tennessee's way. And I don't even mean by the umpires. I don't think the game was poorly called or officiated or anything like that. Their fielding was phenomenal. They had guys making leaping grabs, running to the wall, just absolutely doing work out there in the outfield and in the infield too, making absolutely great plays. And they, Florida State, the ball by Cantu, that's not like a massive fatal error, but that would have been a play that it seemed like Tennessee would make yesterday. They also just were lucky at times. That's not to take anything away from them. They were really, really good, but they were lucky in the fact of like you get a ball that is laced by Cam to the outfield and is going to be a hit and probably not hard enough to get by the outfielders because of how deep they were playing with him up, but it certainly gets you first and second with nobody out. And instead it deflects off of the glove of the pitcher and is an easy double play. And, that's luck, man. That, he's not knocking that down, so it'll be a double play. He's just reaching up for it. And if it's an inch or two higher, it's obviously way past him into left center field. And it's, 2 on with nobody out for Tibbs, who, Cam and Tibbs, both struggled, I think, a little bit in the World Series. I think they had 9 walks in the first few games, which is really, really impressive. But just didn't ever find that groove hitting the ball. I think they had 5 hits combined between them, both grounded in double plays. Against Tennessee, you just, things are going to happen. It's certainly not throwing those guys under the bus or anything like that. I mean, they were your best players all year, and that's fine. But, it's hard. You got performances from guys like West against North Carolina, and Lodi's hit a couple of home runs, and Farrar's obviously, phenomenal. Jaime was great. And so you got performances from other guys, but, it was going to be hard to win this World Series without, James Tibbs and Cam Smith absolutely going off for you. And, they were being pitched incredibly, careful. That's why they had, 9+ walks between them. But they just never really found the barrel of the bat on the ball very well. 5 hits between them in 4 games, not ideal. You probably need a little bit more than that. You scored what was it? You scored 9 the first game and then 7 and 9. So you scored almost 30 runs, and you did that with your big 2 only having 5 hits. And so that it was going to be tough, I think, to get by Tennessee not only once but twice without them starting to come alive. And you needed them a couple of times, and they just couldn't come up, right? Kind of unlucky again by Cam, the ball that deflected out to be a double play. The chopper where the guy gets cut down on the plate, the Tibbs ground into a double play. Tibbs also struck out later. And so it just, not their best game, not their best World Series. Cam also had some fielding stuff that was kind of weird in the World Series too, but also made some great plays there too. So it's you're going to have off weeks, and you hope that doesn't happen on the biggest stage. But a really good postseason run. I want to talk about that in just a second. But I will say we didn't do as much baseball coverage this year as we've done in the past. We've done certainly a lot through the postseason here. But I would like to hear from you guys in the comments. We really did follow both teams, softball and baseball, through their postseason runs and tried to do a lot of content around that if we could. Timing and when other stuff is going on can sometimes make that tough. The girls are playing supers while the guys are in Charlotte and just things like that. But if that's something you want more of, we will certainly kind of try and do more baseball, softball next year as the channel continues to grow, as we continue to grow. I'm not going anywhere. So if that's something you like, certainly let us know down in the comments. If you do enjoy this, if you like watching the updates on the stickball sports, which I'm really passionate about, I do like all of FSU's athletics. But football is obviously king. I get it. And then softball, baseball are amazing in the spring. And there's a lot of other really, really good sports at FSU that I enjoy and go to and stuff. But this seems like a pretty natural fit that we could continue to do content on. And so if you like that, let me know down in the comments. If you want to support or give back at all or get access to more of this, we do have a pretty robust Discord that I'll link in the description. You can get access to some of the private chats by going to patreon.com/DFNS. You can join for as little as $3. Now, that gets you access to some private rooms in the Discord. It also is just a good way to show that you support and want to give back a little bit. So if you've enjoyed these updates, if you like the baseball, softball stuff that we do, or the football or conference realignment, whatever, certainly welcome to go to patreon.com/DFNS. Link is in the description, and you can give back for a few dollars a month, or you can join us on the Discord to chat more about baseball. We'll have a lot of portal news and different things that we're chatting about in there all the time. All in all, a really good postseason run. The Tennessee game stinks. I told a couple of people, losing yesterday wasn't nearly as hard as losing on Friday night. You kind of understood that when you got down 3 runs and then you just couldn't get anything going until really late, that you probably weren't going to win. And then you kind of understood why, right? Arnold not able to go, Whitaker not super effective out of the pen. And then, Dorsey had pitched on Sunday, so he wasn't going to come back. And so injuries caught up with you, not being able to close out the game on Friday night caught up with you. Again, I do think that if you win that game Friday night, you're at least playing today, and you might have closed it out yesterday, depending on who they had to pitch, who was fresh for you, this, that, and the other. So unfortunate, but I don't think it takes away from how special this season really was, and that's probably the bigger takeaway. And it's not, hang a banner for moral victory or anything like that. Florida State at the end of the day was not ranked to start this year anywhere. In fact, they were 10-0 and still not ranked in some places. So finally they beat the crap out of the Gators for the first time, and then they started giving Florida State a little bit of respect, right? And so a season that when you look back on it, you feel like you were right there and you could have had a chance and you maybe should have capitalized a little bit better, and you would have. But I think a season that you should certainly be encouraged by, a season that kind of, again, came out of nowhere. You were unranked. You were terrible last year. You were one of the worst seasons in FSU baseball history. You were the last place team in the ACC, just bottom of the barrel, one of the first teams eliminated from postseason play. Especially in the power, 4-5 level, you just were awful last year. And this year, to fight back through the injuries, fight back through losing Cam, fight back through losing Whitaker for time and Ben Barrett for time and other guys before the season even started, really, really impressive. And it is baseball. You're going to have injuries. You're going to have injuries in any sport, but especially baseball where guys are putting their bodies through so much and you're having pitching injuries and your guys' arms are falling off and everything else. You're going to have that, right? So it's not uncommon for people to have that. But when it happens to one of your top line guys, and then you have to go and deplete a already not elite bullpen, and you go get Dorsey out of it, and he becomes the story of the postseason, in my opinion. Just a guy that you don't get out of regionals and supers, and as far in the World Series as you do without him. What do you think that's going to do to your pen? If you had Carson Dorsey in your pen all year, how much does that change things? How much is he able to go in and really shut things down? The transition that he made from relief to being your number 2 guy is really incredible. And he won you a lot of ACC series that you had to have. You think about the Duke series. You think about, they really should have won Wake if they could have held on. They really competed well. You think about Clemson. You think about others like Carson. You don't do a lot of that without Carson Dorsey. And so I think it's encouraging what they were able to do there. How they were able to piecemeal the bullpen together. Obviously, Whitaker coming on late was big. He was big for you in the Tennessee game. He was big for you in a lot of other games when he took over for whomever would have been starting that game. But I thought the way that they were able to take a bullpen that wasn't great, Charles did fine at times. Holtz and Oxford were pretty good most of the year, and really turned that into something really serviceable. How about Armstrong coming out and just absolutely shutting UNC down? To get you to the Tennessee game. I thought there were really a lot of good storylines, and the team did a phenomenal job. Link did a phenomenal job of getting the absolute most that you could out of them. You're right. You'd have won 3 more games, or 4 more games, I guess. But if you'd have won 4 more games, yeah, you're national champions, and you remember that forever. But I don't think people are going to forget this season because you ended up finishing, top 3, top 4, top 5, somewhere in there. When the final rankings come out, you beat the heck out of both rivals. I was telling somebody the other day, I tweeted, "Thank you for beating the hell out of both Florida and Miami," and Michael Alford liked that on Twitter, and I just thought, man, what this AD is just like us. He understands understands what the priorities are. So, but speaking on him, I mean, obviously, you wouldn't have expected 2 years into Link Jarrett to be, a national semifinalist in the College World Series. I think people thought he would be really good. People thought that this would be a program that he was able to turn around. But I don't think I've ever been more confident that Florida State will find a way to win a national title under Link Jarrett. I think the program so much embodies him. And I think it embodies like who he is. And when I've talked with him on record, off record, at events, he is so laser focused. I was at a charity event for another sport and I was chatting with him and he was just like locked in focused. And I'm like, he's like telling me, yeah, TJ, we need to do this. We need to do that. And I'm like, bro, I just grab a beer, man. Like, let's just hang out. And so I think the team takes that on. Right. And they're probably a little more loose than he is. He is always on 100% until he gets, that goal of winning it all. But I've never been more confident that Florida State is going to be able to do that with him. They're set up next year to have really, really good pitching. I'm certainly not the expert on telling you what next year is going to look like or what they're going to be able to do or who's going to be able to do this, that, and the other. I'll tell you, Jamie Arnold's going to be one of, if not the best pitcher in college baseball next year. If you get Cam Leiter back at 100%, if you have other guys back, they've hit some portal guys already. Yeah, I think it could be really special. You're obviously going to lose Cam and James, probably Jaime as well, others who will move on. And so you're going to have to replace a little bit offensively. There's no doubt about that. Florida State should certainly be a destination in the portal. I think they're set up pretty well for the future. Recruiting is going to continue to trend up, I think, based on the performance, the success. NIL is big in any college sport at this point. I've heard NIL is a factor in every single sport, the sports you wouldn't even think about it being one. We certainly think about football and basketball, but I think baseball, softball are right there with those. And so it may not be to the level that football is by any means, or basketball, some of the top guys, but it's pretty high, right? And so you're not only fighting other programs for NIL, you're fighting the MLB and the draft and stuff, and so that's interesting. And how do you navigate that? I mean, I don't have a great answer there, but that's for people that make a lot more money than I do to figure out. The portal will be big. You got some really big portal additions. I think 4 or 5 of your starting 9, down the stretch was from the portal. A lot of your pitchers were homegrown, but you had to go portal for a lot of the bats that you had this year and a lot of the fielders. And so you may have to do that again. You may have to continue to add there, especially losing James Tibbs, an all-time great at Florida State, and Cam Smith, another really elite player that you had for a while. And so you're going to have to figure that out. Jaime, one of your most clutch players ever, it feels like. I wouldn't be surprised if he went to the MLB draft. I do kind of wonder, and I've started to ask and have some conversations, the way that football convinced some guys to come back, Jared Verse, Johnny Wilson, Trey Benson, Jordan Travis, others, convinced them to come back for one more ride at it, one more run. Could that happen in baseball? Maybe. I don't expect that to happen with like James Tibbs or Cam Smith, like top 15, top 20 type picks. But could that happen with guys a little bit lower down, that are going to be drafted in the round 5 through 8? Maybe. I think that would certainly be something I would look for. Can you kind of rebuild it back up to make one more big run at it? It's going to be tough without James Tibbs and Cam Smith for sure. But how do you replace those? And there's rumors about certain guys in the portal right now. And again, I think Sunday Golds is probably your best bet, your best stop to maybe go and get more info on that. Brett Nevitt is so well connected there. Aria does a great job as well, but Brett is the best when it comes to covering FSU baseball. And, I'll try and give you my fan take on stuff and some insight that I've gotten here and there, but, nobody does it quite like him. So anyway, I think we're really set up well for the future. I'll never forget when Alfred introduced Link and said you can go to Link to the Future, link to FSUfuture.com, and that day talked about how they were bringing him in to win championships, and I think that's the standard, that's the expectation. I think that they're pleased with how this season went. I don't think they're satisfied. I think they are pleasantly excited. Pleasantly surprised, maybe, a little bit ahead of schedule. But, if you don't make it to the semifinals or beyond next year, you're going to say, well, why are we backtracking, right? And so that, that's how they think. That's how the fan base thinks. That's how, as humans, like, we just internalize stuff. That's how we put things together in our minds. And so is that fair to them? Probably not. But the expectation going forward is going to be that this team hosts a regional every year and is competing for a top 8 seed. Team finishes 9th next year, 10th next year, I don't think anybody's bringing out the pitchforks, but finish 9th, 10th, you're going to be expected to go on the road and compete with that 7-8 team for a super, right, and go out and win it. And baseball is the kind of sport where you can go and get that done, and I expect Florida State to be right there competing again. Pitching, if it can stay healthy, is going to take them a long way next year. And, can you replace a couple of bats and get you to where you ultimately want to go, right? Is next year let's load up and make a run of the World Series? I hope so. I think they were super close this year. Let that burn you a little bit and then get back out there and go. And understand the importance of closing games out on a Friday night. When you've got a chance, you've got to finish it. If you did that, you're probably already in the finals. If not, you got a worst-case scenario, probably Whitaker and Arnold going back up against Tennessee again today for a spot in the finals. And so you live and learn. You move on. You complain about umps. You complain about SEC bias or anything else like that. I mean, I thought Florida State unfortunately got paired with the best team in the country, and if they'd have been on the other side, they probably would already be in the finals as well. I mean, not to go full conspiracy theory, but if you've listened for 20 minutes now, I'll give you my quick conspiracy theory on. This isn't really a conspiracy theory, but I thought Florida State was a little bit unlucky getting the 8th seed. I really think they should have been 7th ahead of UGA. If you're 7th ahead of UGA, you're in the other side of the bracket. You don't have to take on Tennessee on your side, and you end up in the finals with them. Maybe it doesn't change anything. Maybe you still lose to Tennessee in the finals, especially not having your lineup set up, right? If Arnold got wasted to get to the finals, you may not matter anyway. But maybe next year you aim for that top 7, not number 8, so that you get to the other side as the best team in the country. But Florida State gave Tennessee all they wanted. I don't know that A&M plays Tennessee as well as Florida State did on Friday night. Certainly not going to predict that A&M has a 4-run lead on Tennessee at any point, but we'll see. Maybe they do. Maybe they upset them. So let me know what your thoughts are on the baseball, softball stuff. Again, hit the comments with any thoughts there, or just congrats for the team or anything else. I know they're going to be back at Dick Hauser soon today based on the time of this recording. So hopefully if you watched this, you went out there, you listened later and you went out there, let me know as well. And then again, if you want to support, you can go to patreon.com/DFNS. You can sign up to support for as little as $3 a month. You get access to a few extra things. If you do that, it's really just a good way to say thanks for the content. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Excited about the future for FSU baseball. We'll talk to you soon. Go Noles.